Welcome back to the episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we have the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We decided to change up just a little bit this week. Oathbreaker is now an official format supported by Wizards of the Coast, so some of our members decided to give the format a shot and brew some decks. So let's see what they came up with. Our first player today is Chandler on Vivien, Monster's Advocate, with the signature spell Savala's Stampede. This is a mono-green stompy deck, hoping to ramp into powerful creatures to beat down his opponents. He keeps an opening hand with the Forest, Lair of the Hydra, Prismatic Vista, Blighted Woodland, Elemental Bond, Llanowar Elves, and Tireless Tracker. Up next is Cameron on Xenagos, the Reveler, with the signature spell Empty the Warrens. This is a Gruul Storm deck, hoping to flood the board with tokens, make a ton of mana off Xenagos' +1 ability, then use that mana to fuel game-ending spells. He starts the game with a Forest, a Mountain, Forbidden Friendship, Harmonize, Fyndhorn Elves, Imricle's Hatcher, and Brood Monitor. Third is Jason on Tamiyo, Field Researcher, with the signature spell Experimental Augury. This banned deck is all about Proliferate, hoping to play a ton of Proliferate effects to power up his creatures. His starting hand is a Mystic Rainforest, Windswept Heath, Boseiju Who Endures, Regrowth, Mystic Remora, Canker Bloom, and Malinthrope. Last of us Shelby and Aminatou, the Fate Shifter, with a signature spell Eerie Interlude. This is a Esper Blink deck, hoping to exile and return a bunch of creatures to the battlefield to trigger powerful triggered abilities. His hand is an Island, a Swamp, Command Tower, Azorius Signet, Cyclonic Rift, Feldar Guardian, and Peregrine Drake. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you don't want to miss out. Big shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate all the support. Link to our Patreon is in the description, as well as link to the deck list, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. Our channel is partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or Magic-related products, check out our affiliate link in the description. We also partner with Inked Gaming, so if you're looking to make any custom playmats, use our affiliate link also in the description. Now, on to the gameplay.
It looks like Chandler wins the die roll, and he'll start off by playing Lair of the Hydra, which enters untapped, and then he'll cast Llanowar Elves. The turn is then passed to Cameron, and he'll play a basic Forest, and then he'll tap it to cast a Fyndhorn Elves, and then he'll pass to Jason. Jason will start his turn off with a Misty Rainforest, which he will immediately fetch with, and with it he'll find a tropical island to the battlefield, then he'll tap it for 1 to cast Noble Hierarch. He'll then pass the turn to Shelby, and it's up to him to match everyone else's 1-drops, so he plays a Command Tower, and passes. Chandler will start off with an Emerald Medallion, he'll then play a Forest as land for turn, and then because of his medallion, he's able to cast 3 visits for only 1 mana. So he'll search his library for a basic Forest, and then he'll pass the turn to Cameron. Cameron will start off with a basic Mountain as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 3 to cast Call the Scions, getting him 2 1/1 Scions, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason. Jason starts off with a Windswept Heath, and he will immediately fetch with it, finding a Tundra to the battlefield. He'll then tap for 1 to cast Mystic Remora, and then an additional 2 to cast Canker Bloom, and then he'll pass the turn to Shelby. Shelby will play a Swamp as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 2 to cast Azorius Signet, and this will allow Jason to draw a card. The turn is then passed to Chandler, who will start off with an Elemental Bond, and he doesn't pay the 4, so Jason draws another card, and then Chandler will tap for 2 and cast Tireless Tracker, and he'll get to draw a card on ETB. After this, he plays a Prismatic Vista as land for turn, which will create him a clue token, and then he'll pass the turn to Cameron, who will play a basic Mountain as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 4 to cast Xenagos. He can't pay the 4, so Jason gets to draw a card, and then Cameron will immediately uptick Xenagos to make 3 mana, and it's all red mana. He'll then sacrifice his 2 Scions for 2 colorless, and he uses it all to cast Emrakul's Hatcher, and when it ETBs, he'll make 3 0/1s. He'll then pass the turn to Jason, who on upkeep will kill his fish. He'll then play a Snow-Covered Island as land for turn, and then tap for 1 to cast Llanowar Elves. After this, Jason will move to combat, and he swings Canker Bloom at Chandler, and Exalted buffs it up to a 4/3. Moving to blocks, Chandler puts Tireless Tracker underneath it, but before damage, he'll fetch with his Prismatic Vista for a basic Forest, getting him another clue. They'll then move to damage, and the creatures will trade. The turn is then passed to Shelby, who will start off with a basic Island, and then he'll cast an Orzhov Signet. After this, he'll tap for 2 and cast a Wall of Omens. When it enters the battlefield, he'll get to draw a card. He'll then pass the turn to Chandler, who starts off with a Blighted Woodland as land for turn. He'll then tap for 4 mana and cast Vivien, Monster's Advocate, and with her now on the battlefield, he gets to cast a Fyndhorn Elves off the top of his library. He'll then uptick her to make a 3/3 beast, and his chosen counter is Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, he draws a card off Elemental Bond. He'll then pass the turn to Cameron, who will start off by casting his Forbidden Friendship, getting him 2 1/1s. He'll then uptick Xenagos, making himself 7 mana, 4 green and 3 red, and he'll use 4 of it to cast Harmonize. However, Jason has a response, and he'll tap for 2 and Dovin's Veto it. After this, Cameron will sacrifice his 3 spawns for 3 colorless mana. Then with it, one of his floating green, one of his floating red, and he'll tap his Finhorn Elves. He'll cast Brood Monitor, getting him 3 more spawns. He'll then sacrifice those 3 spawns and tap for a red to cast Empty the Warrens. Storm count was 4, so he'll resolve 5 copies of the spell and get 10 goblins. After this, Cameron will move to combat, and he'll swing his Hatcher at Jason for 3 damage, and Jason won't block, so he just takes it. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he'll start off by tapping for 3 and casting a Park Heights Maverick. He'll then play a tapped Breeding Pool as land for turn, and then the turn is passed to Shelby, who will play a tapped Watery Grave as land for turn, and then he'll cast Peregrine Drake, untapping his 4 lands. He'll then cast a Felidar Guardian, blinking the Drake, and untapping his lands again. After this, he casts Aminatou, and he'll immediately downtick her to blink Felidar Guardian, and when it re-enters, he'll blink Peregrine Drake, untapping his lands again. He'll then just pass the turn to Chandler, who will immediately cast Selvalis Stampede. It will resolve, and Chandler will vote Wild, Cameron will vote Wild, Jason will vote Free, and Shelby will also vote Free. So Chandler gets to reveal cards off the top of his library till he hits 2 creatures, and then he gets to put them on the battlefield. Then he gets to put 2 permanents from his hand onto the battlefield. The first from library is Apex Devastator, and then a Reclamation Sage. And off the Rec Sage, he'll blow up Orzhov Signet, and he'll put Orin Frostfang and a Forest onto the battlefield. Elemental Bond will draw him 1 card off the Apex Devastator, and then he'll uptick Vivien to make another 3/3 with Trample, and he'll draw a card. After this, he casts Birds of Paradise. Then he'll move to combat and swing one of his 3/3s with Trample at Xenagos, and Cameron will just take the damage. Chandler then attempts to move to end step, but Shelby will stay on second main, and he'll cast Eerie Interlude, exiling all 3 of his creatures. Priority will then go around the table, and will move to end step again, and all the creatures will come back. He'll draw a card, untap all of his lands, and then with Felidar Guardian, he'll target Peregrine Drake. With the Guardian and Drake abilities still in the stack, he'll tap his island, then untap all of his lands, and then tap them all again. Guardian's ability will resolve, resulting in Shelby untapping all of his lands again, and then he'll float an additional 2 mana to overload a Cyclonic Rift. There are no responses at the table, so it will resolve and everybody picks up their non-land permanents. And because of this, Chandler will have to discard 2 forests on cleanup. The turn is then passed to Cameron, and he'll just cast Awakening Zone, and he'll pass the turn to Jason, who will shock in Temple Garden, and then he'll recast his Noble Hierarch, and then his Maverick, and then he'll pass the turn to Shelby. And Shelby will start his turn off with a Morphic Pool. He'll then downtick Aminatou to blink Felidar Guardian, to blink Aminatou, to blink Felidar Guardian, to blink Wall of Omens, and draw a card. You might be thinking that was overly complicated, but by doing that, he ensured Aminatou stayed at 2 loyalty. After this, he'll cast an Esper Sentinel, and then just pass the turn. Chandler will start by tapping for 3 green to cast Birds of Paradise, Finhorn Elves, and Llanowar Elves. He'll then cast his Emerald Medallion, and then he'll play a Forest as land for turn. Oh yeah, and he doesn't pay 1 to Esper Sentinel. Then for 2 mana, he'll cast Reclamation Sage to blow up Awakening Zone. The turn is then passed to Cameron, and he'll start off with a Goblin Instigator. He'll then cast Finhorn Elves and pass the turn. Jason will start off by casting Prologue to Phyresis, and Shelby misses an Esper Sentinel trigger. This will give all of Jason's opponents a poison counter, and he gets to draw a card. After this, he'll move to combat and swing his Park Height Mavericks at Aminatou. Shelby can't block it, but he will respond by casting a Ghostly Flicker. He'll target Felidar Guardian and Wall of Omens, and when they enter the battlefield, he'll draw a card and flicker Aminatou. Since the Aminatou left the battlefield and re-entered, the Maverick doesn't have anything it's attacking anymore, so Aminatou gets to live. Moving on to Jason's second main phase, he'll tap for 4 mana, and he'll cast Tamiyo. He'll immediately uptick her to target Peregrine Drake and Reclamation Sage, so anytime they deal combat damage, he'll get to draw a card. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and the first thing he'll do on his turn is play Urborg. He'll then move to combat and swing Peregrine Drake at Tamiyo, then Felidar Guardian at Cameron, and Esper Sentinel also at Tamiyo. And when damage goes through, Jason draws a card. Post-combat, Shelby will cast Preston the Vanisher. And for those of you who don't know, if this isn't responded to, this could win Shelby the game right here. So priority goes around the table, and there are no responses, so it resolves, and Shelby begins. He'll start by downticking Aminatou to flicker Felidar Guardian. When it re-enters the battlefield, Preston will make a second one, so he'll now have 2 Felidar Guardian triggers on the stack. The first one will flicker Aminatou, and the second will do Peregrine Drake. And since Aminatou is back, he can repeat this process as many times as he wants. Now, once he reaches a Googleplex of mana, he'll then shift from flickering Peregrine Drake over to Wall of Omens, so he can draw as many cards as he wants. And he'll draw until he finds one of 2 cards. The first one he finds is Corpse Knight. So now the next time Aminatou re-enters the battlefield, instead of activating her, he'll cast Corpse Knight, then he'll activate her, and start the loop again. He can have creatures enter the battlefield as many times as he wants, so he'll keep going until all of his opponents are dead. So yeah, there you have it. Shelby wins with ETB triggers in his Flicker deck. Way to go, man. Well, everybody, there you have it. Shelby and Aminatou are the winner of our first Oathbreaker video. As you all know, we here at SmoothBrain love EDH, and since Oathbreaker is a very similar format, we wanted to give it a try. Let us know if you guys enjoy the Oathbreaker format and want to see it more on the channel. Please let us know down below right now. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out all of our links in the description. You can check out our deck list, you can subscribe to our Patreon, you can even see our new podcast episode where some of the founding members talk about what it's like to start a YouTube channel. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, check it out. But that's all for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a smooth day.